What's up? Welcome back to another week of mastering matchups, another episode of Beyond the Box Score. I've got my guy Ryan Heath from Fantasy Points here to help me sort through. Ryan, I think the weirdest week that we've had. I told you before we got on, this is the furthest I've been away from consensus all year as I look at the rankings. So we have a lot to dive into. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe you can point me in the right direction. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, fantasy playoffs, the most fun time to be playing fantasy football. Yeah, I'm excited. Can't wait for all the sweats that I'm gonna have going in all my leagues this weekend. Yeah, it's the best time. It's getting fun. We're getting down to it.
You feeling good heading into the fantasy playoffs?
I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah, I'd say most of I've had like a weirdly in between year. I have very few buys, but like a lot of teams that are kind of like snuck in 4 through 6 seeds. So
Uh
yeah,
huh.
gonna be a lot of sweating over the next few weeks for me.
Yeah, love to hear it. All right, well let's just jump right in then. And I want to start at running back because it's like, holy crap, man. Well, wide receiver is always hard to figure out, but this week it's like, okay, Jonathan Taylor, not in my top 12. Ashton Genty, yeah, I can't even wait to show Ryan that ranking. That's been a point of contention for us all year. I've got guys in my top 20 that consensus has almost outside of the top 40 at the running back position. So I hope that gets you excited, Ryan. I hope that's a sufficient tease. Let's get right into it. Jonathan Taylor, what are we doing with the Colts with JT? I mean, it's pretty much all the Colts across the board are extremely low for me. I've got JT at 15. I've got freaking Ashton Genty at running back 25, right here with Brees Hall at running back 24. The only offense projected for fewer points than the Jets and the Colts this week, according to Vegas, is the Raiders. Of course. Well, let's start with JT. Where are you at on the Colts against the Seahawks?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that makes sense. You could argue to go even lower. I mean, JT's averaging just over 12 fantasy points per game in losses this year. They're 13, yeah, whatever it is, 13 and a half point underdogs. Uh, it's kind of rough. I think you're hoping for Philip Rivers, honestly, because maybe that means like some checkdowns. But yeah, I'm with you. He's not a top 12 running back this week. I should we talk about Trevion Henderson, Woody Marks over him? I could totally see that, honestly.
Yeah, for 16 Marks at 17. I think either one of them could be above him. I mean, Marks is in a similar type of workload. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor is a better player, but Houston's projected for 26 points this week, which is one of the highest totals for any team. The Cardinals defense has been giving in this holiday season. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah, I'm having a tough time with JT. If you have anything specific on the matchup for those two that you want to give people to help them make that decision, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll start with Marks. So this is all obviously contingent on Marks being healthy because he did miss practice Wednesday, and on Nick Chubb not being healthy. But he played all but one snap after Chubb left the game the other night. Like only came out for one snap to get evaluated for concussion. With the Texans being such big favorites, that is really nice for Marks. He's been 64% more efficient by fantasy points per snap when leading this year. Cardinals allowing the most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to opposing runners over the past 5 weeks. We saw Marks get up to 17 expected fantasy points. That's a very, very good workload. I don't know that he's going to be efficient on it. I don't have that high of an opinion of Woody Marks, but yeah, if things line up with the injury report to where it looks like he's just going to get all the work, I don't think Dare Ogunbowale is the answer. I don't think Cody Schrader is the answer. I don't think any of these are the answer. So I could get it. I would get playing Marks over JT. When it comes to Henderson, this one is probably a lot more boom or bust, but there's a lot of good matchup angles for him as well. Bills, the NFL's most extreme run funnel by pass rate over expectation allowed, meaning that teams generally are choosing to run on the Bills, accounting for score and game situation and all that. We've got the Bills allowing the second most yards per carry to opposing man gap concepts, which 62% of Henderson's carries have utilized, the second most of any running back. And the last time we saw him, he got all three of the backfield's touches inside the 10-yard line. So I do think there's a lot of scoring upside here for Henderson. The floor is probably not as good as a Marks or a JT, but he's one I would consider if I were a big underdog.
For sure. For me, a lot of those notes are also Ramondre Stevenson notes. So you'll find here Ramondre Stevenson at 19 in my rankings, and consensus has him at running back 38. Kyle Monangai is the other one who stands out. I've got him at running back 20 in my rankings. Both of these running backs playing at home in split backfields, but we've seen at times each of these running backs kind of take more of the short yardage, short down and distance, goal line work. Both of their offenses are expected to have decent days and are expected to play with a lead. And especially the Bears like to lean on the ground game. And did y'all just see what the Cleveland Browns allowed to Tony Pollard in week 14? Monangai, he looks like a mean dude out there when he's running. And if you don't really feel like playing defense and tackling and getting real physical in the cold weather, I think he's going to take advantage of that. Are you pretty high on Monangai as well?
Yeah, I'm high on both the Bears running backs, and it's almost the exact same take as you. Yeah, both of these guys have been very good when the Bears are winning. Swift has averaged just over 19 fantasy points per game in the 3 games the Bears have won by multiple scores. Yeah, we've seen this Browns run defense kind of quit, was what it looked like to me against Tony Pollard last week. Single-digit temperatures, that's been shown to increase yards after contact per attempt, which I was tweeting out over at Ryan J. Heath on Twitter earlier this week. So I think you need Swift and Monangai as both as top 20 guys. You can pull up your rankings again, but yeah, I'm quite high on both of them. It looks like you are as well. You've got Swift at RB 18, just ahead of Stevenson. I might even slip Monangai ahead of Stevenson, but like I get it. These are all like very interesting split backfield plays.
Yeah, the main difference between those two, if there is a distinction between Stevenson and Monangai, is just the implied point total is a little bit higher for the Patriots. That Bears-Browns game might just be real gross, but I agree. I could see it being a big Monangai week, and we've seen much more up Stevenson has been in basically the role he's in now anytime he's been healthy, and he's had, I don't know, 1 or 2 decent games, and like 5 of his 9 games have been single-digit fantasy points. So I get why he's ranked low, but in this matchup, in this potential shootout, and with the role shifting back towards Stevenson, 71% snap rate in the first half of their last game, I think he's a pretty decent start. The players we have under him here that I've got ranked below Stevenson have a lot of question marks, in my opinion. That's Judkins, that's Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle, Brees Hall, Ashton Genty, Kenneth Walker, the Pittsburgh backfield. Consensus doesn't seem to be reacting to what we've seen lately with both Kenneth Gainwell and Kamani Vidal. So I've got Gainwell 1 spot below Warren, but consensus has him as like a fringe flex play or even worse. And then Vidal, I've got 3 spots ahead of Amari and Hampton, and same thing. Consensus has him ranked very, very low, running back 42. To me, like, these are the 2 running backs who are honestly on paper like the better play of the backfield if you just remove talent and everything else, and it's just looking at who's getting touches where. They're both splitting early down work fairly evenly. They both are, you might find them on the field when the team gets in the red zone. Both Gainwell and Vidal get the receiving work as well. If you want like an even worse version of this archetype, it would be Dylan Sampson for the Browns, which is, I guess, why I'm a little bit low on Judkins. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on any of that. Like Jerome Ford is going to be out of the equation now for Cleveland. Any of those 3 backfields, we've got a ton of split backfields, obviously. You can talk about any of them, and I'm going to go find your weather tweet and show that to people.
Awesome, yeah. With the Steelers, I just totally agree with you. We actually, in our projections over at Fantasy Points, we have Gainwell projected slightly ahead of Jaylen Warren this week. Just, from the recent workloads that we've seen. So I think that makes sense. I think you could even flip them. Won't argue too much. I will argue with you a little bit on the Chargers. I think in Hampton's first game back, it seems like the plan was to keep him on a snap count. He actually played exactly 10 snaps in each half, which I thought was interesting. That might literally have been the plan. You're going to play 10 snaps and no more. He still got most of the stuff in the red zone, which to me is like we want to maximize his impact within this snap count. The snap count probably increases this week. I agree that like the pass blocking stuff and him whiffing that block was not great. Vidal, yeah, probably stays in on some third downs because of that. But I would be ranking Hampton over Vidal this week. That's maybe a little bit more off of feel and just an assumption of this is how they feel about the running backs and they want Hampton to be the lead back. But I think that it's a reasonable assumption based on talent and all that. So yeah, I would just flip those, but that's my only real argument with you.
Yeah, if it was a neutral game script, which it may well be, who knows with the way the Chiefs season has gone. If it was a neutral game script, I would have Hampton pretty much identical, and I would be fine ranking him ahead. Um, with them as 4.5 point underdogs on the road, I am a little nervous that it might be the type of game where they can't lean into the ground game quite as much, and Hampton only ends up with 8 to 10 touches or something like that, and another low snap rate because he's not out there for those passing downs. I would just be very nervous to play him. Is basically where I'm at. So here's this on the screen. If you haven't seen this, this is from Ryan. Pretty interesting stuff. Pretty cool stuff. And I think is relevant because Dan the man, the weatherman here. Him and I have talked about these cold weather games a lot, especially as it pertains to some of these grit and grind offenses, Chicago Bears and whatnot. So we've got some actual data to back it up. All right. So yeah, I've got the Pittsburgh backs below Walker, Genty, Brees Hall, and the Carolina running backs and Judkins. Does anyone there stand out to you? I'm basically lower than consensus on all of them except for Chuba Hubbard, apparently.
Yeah, no one there really stands out. I mean, I'm going to have the same argument with you about Genty that we have every single week, which we don't have to do again. But the guy that sticks out to me in this range is actually Chris Rodriguez as someone I'd maybe be interested in moving up. So it was a complete blowout game script last week. So the fourth quarter to me, like, basically doesn't matter. 71% of the carries through the first three quarters. Only Commanders running back to see a touch inside the 10-yard line over their past two games. Giants defense allowing the most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to opposing running backs the past 5 weeks before contact per attempt over the full season. It's another cold weather game. And schematically, Giants are allowing nearly 7 yards per carry to opposing man gap concepts, which Rodriguez has seen the fourth most of any running back. So, like, you can question the upside for sure, but when we're down here in RB29, like, I think I might rather roll with a Rodriguez over like the Steelers guys, for example, this week. And you can make a very similar argument for Tyrone Tracy, who's on the other side of this game and is favored, which is nice too.
Yeah, I'm interested in both of those players. We've brought up Rodriguez over the past couple of weeks as like somebody you needed to grab because like you might just get a free starter in week 15 in the first round of the playoffs here against the Giants. And now that we're here, I'm fine with it. But like you said, there's not much upside. And also, I do worry a little bit about Washington with game script. If Dart plays well, if they happen to get down again. I mean, if the Vikings can do it to you, yeah, I'm just nervous about that. But the Giants' defense is worse than the Vikings' defense. I think it's an okay start. I mean, to me, like, this is about as high as I could push them. I've got him above Devin Neal. I've got him above Aaron Jones against the Cowboys. And like you said, Tyrone Tracy. I think I see him very similarly to Neal. I like the matchup better. And this Carolina-New Orleans game just scares me that it might be a very run-heavy game that's just not very good for fantasy. And so that's why Neal is lower than consensus here. But yeah, like Tracy and Jones, I think have more upside than Rodriguez. I worry a little bit about how the backfield touches might be dispersed. I mean, Jones at times has had a really good role, but last week it was like 49% snap rate, 33% route rate, or something like that. I feel like it's kind of clearly looked better when they run through Jordan Mason on the early downs lately. And I wonder, as we get kind of back into this, like, hand holding Harbaugh type of thing here for JJ McCarthy, if Jordan Mason's kind of their best friend there. Um, but there's upside for sure if things go well. We know he can create big plays, and same thing for Tracy. Tracy, I don't know, man. I'm sure you watched it because it was against New England. As I was watching that game, I started to feel really uneasy about anywhere where I had Tracy, which is basically just like best ball leagues and stuff. But it's like I freaking lost the game because of Tracy getting outscored by Darius Slayton. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Where it's like it was going to Singletary a lot more than I like, and Singletary capitalizes most of the time that he's given opportunities. So he's just like on the lower end of this kind of mixed backfield range for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of happened at points throughout the season. Like they just randomly start going to Singletary more, and he usually does pretty well. I mean, to your point, I think it was seven, even in like the 2 games before the Pats game, if I have my games straight, like weeks 11 and 12, Tracy was at 17.8 expected fantasy points per game, which is awesome. Even in those games, Singletary, I think 7 of the 10 backfield touches inside the 10. Both of those were Jameis Winston games. So it's like, can the backfield be that valuable with Jackson Dart? I think these are all good questions to ask. I think even with those, just with the game environment, with the matchup, I'm going to prefer Tracy definitely over like an Aaron Jones, over a Kamani Vidal. Probably even over a Devin Neal, who also just does not really have much upside at the goal line. Got his first goal line touch of the past like 3 weeks last week, where it's still mostly been Shuck in close to the goal line. So I think I like Tracy's spot better than those guys.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I like the Chris Rodriguez call out, and I think Tracy is a good one to identify as a very high upside play. If you're looking for a kind of desperation type of running back 2 flex option here. Anyone else from this range stand out to you before we hit our first break, and then we'll get back and talk about some receivers? It's everybody beyond who we've talked about so far, with Tracy and Hampton being the bottom of that. Tony Pollard, Singletary, Blake Corum in a shootout against the Lions. Big game, but the role didn't really change at all. The Chiefs running backs you'll find down here: Jordan Mason, David Montgomery, Bam Knight, now that we finally have confirmation on Trey Benson. But it's a matchup against the Texans. Anybody stand out to you?
Not particularly. I hope you don't have to start any of these guys. I'm starting Blake Corum in a couple spots this week. You're just praying for the touchdown in the 55 point over under game, which is fine. But yeah, after that, it gets pretty gross.
I love Dylan Sampson as a player for the Browns, rookie running back, and I do think that Jerome Ford's absence is relevant for him. It felt like we're intentional about getting him the ball as a receiver more in this past game. And I thought Shador facilitated better offense than we've seen there all year. But this could be a really gross game where it's the Bears just running every single play and the game's over, right? So I don't want to go there unless you absolutely have to. All right, I see some questions in the chat. A lot of people curious about what to do with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Emeka Egbuka, of course. We're going to take our first break. We'll get back. We'll talk about that and everything else at the receiver position for Week 15.
You can always count on NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. So even if you can't count on accurate expiration dates,
that is a rookie mistake,
or people appreciating your fashion sense,
Jim, the crowd is not on board here.
you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS, streaming on Paramount Plus.
Glad we wear our good jerseys.
Yeah.
We're back. It's mastering matchups, and so of course we have to talk about this Atlanta Falcons defense. Lots of single high safety coverage. We've got a Thursday night showdown here between the Falcons and the Bucs. Mike Evans making his return to the field. In theory, I feel like this is a great spot for him to return. Do you have any thoughts on Evans or Egbuka or Chris Godwin in this spot?
I don't know, man. Like everyone's just all over the place with this. I think, honest, like the prop markets have them all within like 3 or 4 yards of each other. I think everyone is just kind of throwing their hands up and saying, I don't know. Evans, I think historically has not been like at his total peak in his first game back. At least that's what we saw last year, if memory serves, that it took a game or two for him really to get back to himself. So yeah, I think you definitely don't want him like in the top 24-ish. You might have nailed it, honestly. Like, I think you could argue for him above someone like a Jawan Jennings, despite a good matchup for Jennings. But yeah, like as you said, all of the schematic stuff is really good for receiving production in general, especially outside receivers, especially Mike Evans. So yeah, it's tough. It's really hard. I think whether you play Mike Evans has a lot more to do with whether you're an underdog or a favorite this week. It's way more about like risk management to me than like the number we project him for, or like where you rank him.
What about Emeka Egbuka? You fine with him where I've got him here? It's at wide receiver 23 behind Stephon Diggs, Zay Flowers, DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton, Teddy McMillan, and Wan'Dale Robinson, ahead of Justin Jefferson, ahead of Mike Evans, ahead of Christian Watson. How's that feel?
I mean, just by catchable expected fantasy points, he's below even that. I think
Yep.
he's like a mid-range wide receiver 3 by catchable XFP.
Wide receiver 29.
Yeah. So honestly, I think you could bump him down. So the only thing that like keeps me in is the Buccaneers coaches have been drum beating. Like we're going to get Egbuka involved. He's going to get some easy catches, some short passes, all of that. So I think the floor is actually decent with Egbuka. I think it makes sense to have him above, like, him and Jefferson are really tough. I'm just staring at this one, not sure who to rank above each other. I don't know if you have thoughts on Jefferson or Egbuka specifically, but yeah, help me. I have no clue.
Yeah, who does? Consensus has Jefferson at wide receiver 14. I've got him at wide receiver 24. I'm nervous about Dallas just using, tons of zone coverage and shifting everything towards Jefferson. I think that's the pretty simple way to approach defending this team, and that's often the way that I see this defense lean is simple. So my guess is that we'll just kind of see what we've seen lately, which is JJ McCarthy like not really wanting to force that and just going to TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison.
Yep. Yeah, no, agreed there. So, all right. Yeah, fine. I think you have the optimal rankings here.
What's new?
Yeah. Yeah, man. I just can't make any arguments whatsoever.
The chat's not happy about Chris Godwin. The disrespect on Godwin is insane. Yeah, he has 55 yards, 78 yards, no touchdowns. There's not very much upside with Chris Godwin. The offense isn't playing that well, and there's a chance that he's part of like a 4 or 5 receiver rotation. Like, I don't think Sterling Shepard will get completely phased out, and Jalen McMillan might play too. So we'll see on Godwin. I think it's a fine spot if you want to start him. Like, if you've got him and Ladd McConkey, I feel better about Godwin. I would just start him. But if you need to take a shot on more upside like a BTJ or Christian Watson or Deebo Samuel, I prefer them. I think Bow's kind of similar as like the third piece on the offense in a good offense, hopefully a high-scoring offense in a decent matchup. Would you lean towards Juwan over Godwin?
Yeah, I'd go to Juwan. That's a way better matchup to me for him. I mean, the Titans allowing the most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receiver ones. So like Juwan's kind of a weird wide receiver one, but a wide receiver one nonetheless. Fourth most schedule adjusted over the past 5 weeks. Like they've just been getting roasted through the air. Teams have been throwing on them. Biggest pass funnel in the NFL. So yeah, I feel pretty solid about Juwan this week. Actually, would definitely play him over Godwin. Probably over even Egbuka. I think you could argue to play him over. Probably not in terms of upside, but
right. That's as we're just looking at the Juwan game log here, and I know we're trying to go beyond the box score, but if you look at the box score, it's like it's pretty much 40 yards every week, and I think that's basically what you can expect here with with Kittle and CMC both healthy. But to your point, I do think this is a great spot for him. The strength of the Titans defense is like right up the middle, but you can pick on these cornerbacks. And so we'll probably see a decent number of looks for him, and maybe Ricky Pearsall gets going. I don't want to give you guys false hope. Just to be clear, here's where I'm at on Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver 46, behind Rashad Bateman and Jaden Reed and Rashid is where I have Ricky Pearsall. So don't get carried away with what I just said there. Okay, at the top, pretty much locked in with the usual name here. AJ Brown is up joining that group at this point, I think. Any hesitation at all with Michael Wilson against the Texans on the road? Not really, right?
Yeah, I mean, the volume's going to be there. I don't know that. Yeah, I was going to say 12's a little high for me, but wide receiver actually gets kind of ugly after that. So I don't blame you. I would play Olave over Michael Wilson. I would play Terry McLaurin over Michael Wilson. I just think both of those guys are in kind of much better spots. Olave, yes, while I worry about like the number of plays in Saints Panthers and the Panthers wanting to like be run heavy and everything and like kind of condensing the game, it's still like a really great schematic spot for Olave. We've seen him just roast cover 3, especially, which is all the Panthers do. 63% of Olave's targets and 72% of his fantasy points the last time he played the Panthers came against cover 3. Had a season high 104 receiving yards, even with that game only being like 17-3. So I think Olave is like a really good play this week. McLaurin also in like a really great spot against the Giants. A lot of man coverage to the deep ball. I think there's a lot of upside there. He's still at like 3.8 yards per out run in Marcus Mariota's starts. He's just like clearly the alpha Mariota's favorite guy to throw to. So I think I would play both of them over Michael Wilson. But yeah, once you get to like Devontae Smith, I would just go with Wilson for the volume.
Okay. Yeah, I think that all makes sense. I'm fine going with Olave and McLaurin over him. How about Tedero McMillan on the other side of this Olave game? I was shocked to see him so high, wide receiver 13 in consensus rankings. So that's above Chris Olave. That's above Terry McLaurin. Do you have any thoughts on him against the Saints, who played pretty tough recently on defense?
Yeah, I'd definitely be below consensus. Probably about where you are in wide receiver 21, I think is about right. Saints also play a bunch of cover 3, and that's also decent for McMillan, not like huge splits or anything. It's the same for Jalen Coker, who got our Jalen Coker breakout before the bye, leading the team in target share and all of that. So I think McMillan's fine where he is, especially if it's no longer like a guarantee that he's just going to lead the team in targets in XFP. I think 90% he does, but it's a genuine thing I'm thinking about is Jalen Coker.
Got to, right? Let's see. Coker. So I'm 2 spots ahead of consensus, but that's probably not high enough for Ryan. How you feeling about him compared to somebody like Vele in this game? We've got Alec Pierce moved way down. Jerry Jeudy had a good game last week, but only 11% first read target rate. We talked about Pearsall. These players are all kind of similar for me, but I don't think there's maybe as much upside for Coker in the passing game with Carolina as some of the other ones. Does this look about right, or would you be moving him up?
Yeah, it's probably about right. Yeah, the upside just is not that great, honestly. So we'll talk about it later, maybe in the DFS section, but I really like DK this week as well. Shimare DK, to be clear, not DK Metcalf. I would probably be moving him up before I move anyone else up, before I move Coker up.
Talk to me about that. I like DK. It hasn't really been there so much with the production lately, but we did see 8 targets last week. San Fran's defense is gettable, I would say. Where are you at with him?
All right. So 49ers play cover 4 primarily, right? We've got DK with a 21% boost to his targets per out run against cover 4. It's an amazing just on paper / slot matchup. 49ers allowing the 3rd most receiving yards per game, 4th highest passer rating, 2nd most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to the slot, where DK's been for 71% of his routes. The 49ers also don't get really any pressure at all. Dead last in the NFL in pressure rate over expectation. And the Titans offense has actually been functional when they haven't been pressured. It's really just been that has made Cam Ward have like a 0 net yards per attempt. Like it's respectable when he's not pressured. And DK actually is at 0.63 fantasy points per route run just on the plays that Ward has kept clean. That's actually 14th best among 80 qualifying wide receivers over the full season. And that's only in games without Calvin Ridley, when DK obviously has quite a bit less target competition. But yeah, Ridley's out for the year. It's just like a really good spot schematically on paper on several levels. Titans gonna have to be throwing. I like him as like a desperation flex. I like him on DraftKings this week as a $4,300 kind of salary saver at the wide receiver position that probably no one's going to get to. And I think there's a decent amount of upside. I like him. He's had like a few decent games. He can bring in a return touchdown as well. So it's okay to me.
It's okay to me too. I like DK. Where are we feeling? Like DK over Alec Pierce, over Pearsall?
I would play him over Pearsall, honestly. In theory, decent spot for Pearsall too. He's just done literally nothing since coming back from injury, so it's like,
right.
I'd probably put him over a Bateman too. I think next to Jaden Reed is like perfect.
Cool. All right, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson. Ryan, it is time, I think, for you to tell us what the hell we're going to do with these Green Bay receivers. I've got Watson at 27. I think he'll mostly avoid Surtain, right? That'll mostly be Romeo Doubs. This is actually a little bit lower the consensus. Everybody's really come around on Christian Watson. How's it feel, Ryan, to have finally arrived? Vindication?
Yeah, no, he was literally chalk in DFS last week, and I was like, oh my god, this has never worked out for us. What's going to happen here? And it was still fine. So, yeah, I still like Watson this week. Shocker. I do think he'll mostly avoid Surtain. Even if he didn't, I don't know that it's like a deal breaker. We just saw Terry McLaurin score 17.4 PPR points while lined up across from Surtain a couple weeks ago. So he's been playing probably kind of injured. Surtain doesn't really scare me. It's a good schematic matchup with the Broncos playing so much man coverage, especially when Surtain has been active. Watson's up at 3.5 yards per out run against man this year. That's fourth best, 50% boost. He's really Green Bay's only good man being Wicks isn't running a full-time route share, which he has not been since Jaden Reed came back. Watson still leading the Packers in routes last week, even with all their guys coming back healthy. So yeah, I would play him over Mike Evans straight up this week. That one's pretty easy to me. I think it's similar bets, like better game environment for Evans, but at least I know Watson's going to be out there running all the routes. I'd play him over Juwan Jennings as well. Him and Justin Jefferson, probably pretty similar bets.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine with that. If I remember right, Green Bay's implied total was a decent bit lower than San Francisco and Tampa Bay. Yeah, 22.5. It's not bad. I mean, I think this game could be gross against Denver, and we know that the downside for Watson is very real. Like, I feel safer with Jennings. I see Watson and Evans pretty dang similarly. Jordan Love is playing better than Baker, but I feel a little bit better about the matchup and the game environment here for Tampa Bay. So that's where he landed for me. Did you have any thoughts on Deebo Samuel in this matchup? Like, as we get into this range, I don't know what to do with these players. Like the Luther Burden ranking is under the assumption that Rome Odunze is out. I talked with Dan yesterday, and he felt like I was like pretty notably high on Burden. And I didn't necessarily mean to be, but I do feel more comfortable with him than some of these other guys. And I think that there's upside for him to break some big plays. We haven't really seen that much yet, but I do think that's in his bag. Anything there, Debo, BTJ, Luther, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I honestly have nothing on Debo other than just that McLaurin's schematic matchup is a lot better in terms of targets per out run against man coverage. McLaurin goes way up, Debo goes way down. But I mean, I think you have him appropriately ranked because it's still honestly, weirdly, the Giants Commanders one of the better game environments on this slate. The volume's been good at times. Burden, I think, is a solid pick. Browns lead the NFL in single high rate. Burden's been, I think it's still close to double as efficient against single high looks as two high looks this year. So I think he's interesting enough. This Bears offense is just weird to me. I think probably the right answer is like the passing game doesn't matter and that it's just the running backs that matter. You kind of run out of guys you feel good enough to rank ahead of a Luther Burden that actually have at least the theoretical talent-based upside, right? Like maybe you could flip Addison over him. He's at least going to run all the routes. Has seen some bigger target shares in the past few games with the Justin Jefferson and JJ McCarthy of it all, but. Yeah, I can't pick too many nits, and then I don't want to rank Colts over Luther Burden, so it gets rough.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Is I think actionable here is that Ladd McConkey and Michael Pittman are two players who have been in people's starting lineups this year. Especially Pittman has helped people get to the playoffs, I think. But now we're staring at those two and not feeling good at all. I think we've got a group here of Luther Burden, Darius Slayton, Ryan Flournoy if CeeDee Lamb is out, Jaden Higgins, Kayshon Boutte, players who are probably on waiver wires. Depending on how shallow or deep your league is, you might be able to find these players for free. And Burden is the only one I have ranked ahead of Pittman, but I think you could go to somebody like Slayton. Did you have any matchup thoughts on him? This is a lot higher than consensus, but I have him right behind Michael Pittman.
I mean, over the full season, the Commanders have been more vulnerable to the slot. So I think you have Wan'Dale Robinson ranked appropriately high. But yeah, like we've said, this game could be a shootout. Slayton looked decent against my Patriots a couple weeks ago for, I think, really the first time all season that he's looked even somewhat healthy to me. I'm sure Dan might have a specific opinion on that I'm sure he shared on this network earlier in the week. But yeah, I could see it. I probably ultimately stick with Pittman. I do. If there's any take for the Colts, I think that if it's Phillip Rivers starting, it probably benefits Pittman and Pierce a little bit in the sense that I don't think they can ever put Josh Downs on the field, because if they are not just going max protect all the time, then Rivers is going to get killed by the pass rush. So maybe you see it consolidate a little more to a Pittman. So yeah, I don't think I'd start Slayton or Flournoy with CeeDee Lamb in I'd go Pittman over Slayton, Flournoy with Lamb in. But it is gross and rough. And you mentioned McConkey too. This whole Chargers passing attack, it just looks very scary to me against the heavy too high that the Chiefs have been running, especially the past month or so. Basically every single Chiefs receiver has really bad splits against too high looks. Obviously everything with the Chargers offense has been rough since the Joe Alt injury. So yeah, I'm with you in that all these guys are man, we're just kind of dying right when we need you the most in the fantasy playoffs.
We've got a comment from the chat that just says Rivers is a pass funnel, which I think we might be onto something. If we actually get 58-year-old Phillip Rivers in here, that it might just be flowing, just short area targets to Michael Pittman and the likes. All right, this is where I've settled on receivers. I'll send this out in the FFT newsletter. Google that if you aren't subscribed already. That's free. You get my rankings, and I'll help you sort some of these tougher decisions out. We're going to take our second break. We're going to get right back and do some flex discussions, and we're going to get out of here.
Here we go. The 2025 CBS Sports NFL schedule is here. 18 glorious Sundays.
He's got his receiver, touchdown!
Filled with rematches.
Oh, the play of the year!
And rivalries.
Touchdown, Bengals!
Plus, plenty of superstar showdowns. And an epic matchup between the Chiefs and Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Clear your Sundays beginning September 7th for the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
All right, Ryan. So we've talked about this range of running backs who are kind of filling in. Woody Marks, Ramondre Stevenson, Kyle Monangai. Maybe you weren't going to them as starters earlier in the year, but I think you can now. How do they compare for half PPR or full PPR to somebody like Michael Wilson or Olave, McLaurin? Are you pushing those receivers ahead of them pretty comfortably, or do you just kind of want the volume of these running backs?
I think especially with like Jameson Williams, Michael Wilson, Chris Olave, I would play those over, like the split Bears backfields. Yeah.
So is Travion Henderson above them because he has more of the upside in theory, like that he can maybe kind of match those wide receiver profiles, or are you still going with the receivers?
I think so. With Henderson, yeah, I would still, or maybe Jameson Williams over Henderson. That's quite a decision there if you have to make that one.
I think I would start all of them above Henderson. I think I see Henderson very similarly to Terry McLaurin, actually.
Okay, fair enough.
No, that's basically where I'm at. Okay, so then I think that we get a different tier here, just below at wide receiver, where there's like, I guess they're kind of safer plays, maybe. I mean, you never really feel that safe with the Eagles passing game or with Stephon Diggs. But it's Devontae Smith, Jacoby Myers, Stephon Diggs, Zay Flowers, and DK Metcalf. We could put Sutton in that group too. What do you think about those guys compared to the Carolina running backs this week?
Yeah, I just feel very down on Carolina. I don't feel that up on most of these receivers. I don't know if you want to like split the difference. Like I think Zay Flowers is very scary this week, going against DJ Turner. So yeah, I think that's good. I feel good about Stephon Diggs. Actually, Bill's allowing a lot to the slot. Yep. You would hope that Diggs runs more routes coming out of the bye. Solid schematic matchup and all that too for Diggs. So think him over the Carolina guys makes sense.
Okay, bit deeper down the board here. We got the Pittsburgh running backs above Christian Watson, below Christian Watson. Are you going Pittsburgh running backs over Juwan Jennings, or are they further down this receiver group?
I'm just going Christian Watson over the Pittsburgh guys, I think.
Okay. I think that's about right. Chris Rodriguez, I don't think has maybe as much upside as these Pittsburgh running backs, who I think could give you some big plays and maybe more touchdowns, maybe more receptions. I think there's a decent little tier break from the Pittsburgh guys to Rodriguez and Neal. I know that you're into Rodriguez, so let's say Neal instead. Neal or BTJ, Neal or McConkey, some of these really speculative receivers. Or if you want to make it more like equal in terms of the profile, how about Neal or Godwin or Shakir, who are like maybe a little bit safer?
That's a better way to put it, probably. I'd go Neal over those guys.
Okay. So this looks about right then. I think I'm fine with that. Okay, then how about some of these dicier plays at running back? Aaron Jones, Tyrone Tracy, Amarian Hampton. How do you feel about them? Are you starting them all over Luther Burden pretty easily, over Jordan Addison?
I think so, yeah.
I think so too. What about McConkey or Tyrone Tracy, Aaron Jones, Hampton?
I think give me McConkey over all of those besides Aaron Jones, but I know you have it ranked slightly differently.
Alrighty, that's good stuff. I think we're pretty good on flex. Hope that helps you guys out. And again, on Sundays, if you show up on the FFT stream, I'll be on there live with Heath Cummings and Adam Mazer answering start-sit questions. Let's run through tight end real quick. I've got Harold Fannin up at tight end 4, just behind the elite guys here at the top, and that's where consensus has him. Kyle Pitts, I've got a tight end 5. That's where consensus has him. That surprised me a little bit. Here's where we deviate. It's Dalton Kincaid and Theo Johnson. I've got each of them 5 spots above consensus. Does that look about right? Do you have any thoughts on the tight ends this week?
I think you're absolutely right on Theo Johnson. It's a great matchup for him. Commanders, let's see what it is here. Yeah, second most schedule adjusted fantasy points to tight ends over the past 5 weeks. Also, they kind of funnel everything underneath, fourth most receiving yards per game within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. So, yeah, I really like the Theo Johnson call was going to be a guy that I pointed out if you didn't have him ranked highly. Yeah, after them is kind of where it really falls off to me. Travis Kelce has had like a pretty decent season, but I'm nervous about this entire game environment, as we've kind of alluded to earlier. Yeah, everyone else, every other tight end just kind of sucks after those top 7.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think Britton Strange and Hunter Henry are both decent starts. If you don't have one of the top options here, I'm extremely nervous about Tyler Warren. I've got him down to tight end 12. We did rest of season rankings, and I put him behind Fannin, and I think I had Pitts ahead of him. I think I had Kincaid ahead of him. It's not feeling good for me there. Maybe Phillip Rivers comes back and just gives him a ton of targets or something. But in 3 games out of the bye, they really haven't designed the offense around him at all. The first 3 target rates haven't been high. I think Mike Gesicki is maybe someone you can go to as a fill-in if T. Higgins misses. Darren Waller, there's some upside maybe, but I think Miami just doesn't want to pass. So yeah, you get down to this range and it's you can bet unlikely against the Bengals, but really it's pretty bad in this lower range at tight end. So I'll keep those on the screen for anybody who cares about that. And let's transition to quarterback to wrap things up. I saw you had some notes on CJ Stroud and Nico Collins for DFS. So we'll kind of wrap this all into DFS and the quarterback discussions. To me, Stroud and Jackson Dart were the 2 that stood out the most. At quarterback this week, the Texans, again, I mentioned their implied total is way higher than it normally is in this matchup. Same for the Giants, but let's hear what you got on Stroud and Nico.
Yeah, so to start off, this could change with injury stuff, but right now it looks like Woody Marks is going to be the highest owned running back on the slate. Nico and Stroud will get played some, but neither are going to be top 3 probably in ownership at their position. So kind of like them as leverage off of Woody Marks. And this could just be a very pass heavy game. These teams are both top 5 in pace, both top 10 in pass rate over expectation. So could develop into a shootout. Good schematic matchup for Nico Collins against cover 4. He's top 5 in yards per out run against that shell behind only the superstars and Christian Watson, who's the best wide receiver to ever play, of course. So that's okay that Collins is behind him. And then the other big thing is that kind of the Cardinals, their defensive philosophy is we're going to drop into quarters and we're not going to blitz. We're just going to let teams try to pick us apart. And that kind of works for CJ Stroud. He's been very willing to test teams in cover 4. He is at a 30% deep throw rate against it, which is insane. He has averaged 21.3 DraftKings fantasy points per game when he's been pressured on fewer than 40% of his dropbacks. Over 27 in the 2 games he's been pressured on fewer than 34%. Cardinals average pressure rate just below 34%. Only have gone above 40 in 2 of their 13 games. So I am never a Stroud believer really, but I am this week just because it's kind of the perfect matchup for him and Nico to just kind of set the slate on fire.
I love it. Welcome to the Stroud Club. It has been rough for a while now. Here, just heads against the wall, me and Max Toscano, and believing that it's not Stroud's fault. We'll see. I think this is a great matchup for him. Dan felt the same way. This Arizona defense is super susceptible here, and we might see a big game from Stroud. Okay, so yeah, I've got Stroud at quarterback 15. I've got Marcus Mariota ahead of him, but I think that they're very similar. I guess Stroud is maybe safer. We saw Mariota and the Washington pass offense just completely bottom out last week. But it feels like a good bounce back spot for him. And we know that he can run too, which Stroud isn't giving you quite as much of. Would you move Stroud ahead of any of these guys? It's Mariota, Goff, Mayfield, and Trevor Lawrence, who I have directly above him.
I'd move him ahead of Mariota and maybe Goff. I think the total is quite a bit higher than with the Lions. So yeah, I think you can get him to QB 13. maybe even over Baker. Like what has Baker done like since he's been getting injured constantly? Like he looks better the last couple of weeks. That's like one I'd have to think about really hard. I don't look at the non-main slate as much, but yeah, Baker versus Stroud is legit pretty close to me.
Yeah, that's fair. I've been happy to see him running a little bit, and I kind of think that they're gonna really try to get some like good feeling going here with Evans back. You know what I mean? And if they get it going, that they might just kind of run it up to be like, yeah, we're back. Like might be one of these games where there's a lot of points put on the board for Tampa Bay. Um, I I would probably lean towards Baker of the two, just because I don't feel that much confidence in Houston's offensive line or Stroud or anything any given week. But I think you're totally valid to put him above Baker. It's been a really rough year for Baker. Okay, Jackson Dart, I've got a QB4 up here just behind Drake May, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen, ahead of Matthew Stafford and Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts. Consensus has Stafford at QB2 this week, which is the highest that I've seen him, I think, since he's been a Ram, maybe. Huge implied total for the Rams against Detroit, of course. So that's fair. What do you think about this Dart ranking? Is this too high?
I think it's too high. Yeah, I can't rank Dart over Stafford in the spot he's in, Joe Burrow in the spot he's in, like these massive totals. There's always like a 20% or maybe even greater chance that Dart just gets injured mid-game. Yeah. Like, I could not play him over some of these like elite quarterbacks in amazing game environments this week.
That's fair. I wish we wouldn't be speaking that into existence, but it's definitely a possibility. I think there's a lot of upside for sure. Washington's defense is toast, has been toast all year. And, man, we just saw what the Vikings were able to do in that spot. I think Dart's excited to get back out there and is probably going to put some points on the board. Okay, lower range here, and then we'll get out of here. Tyler Shuck, wanted to get your opinion on Shuck, Bryce Young, Shedeur Sanders. If you're going to anybody as your like streamer fill-in down here, does anybody stand out? Because I think that there's honestly some decent matchups for some of these quarterbacks that don't get used so much for fantasy. Did anybody stand out to you from this lower range?
I think Shuck is probably my favorite of them just because of all the volume inside the 10. Some of the matchup notes I was talking about with Olave earlier also just apply to Shuck in terms of less pressure, better against cover 3, all of that. I would play a Shuck over like a Justin Herbert this week for sure. I would feel pretty nervous about that. What do you think of Jacoby Brissett? You have him a couple spots above consensus. I know that's a guy that a lot of people probably have been starting, but we've got him down at QB 20 this week. I don't think you're necessarily wrong either. It's just a really rough implied total.
Right. Yeah, we've seen the past couple of weeks it come down a little bit where he's not producing 400 passing yards per game or whatever. And that's more into this kind of range. Like if I worry that this might be the game where he doesn't have multiple touchdowns, and that's where it's still not a bad outlook though, just because he drops back so freaking much. I do think that there's a path to a game where we don't get 40 dropbacks if they just can't move the ball and it's just like altogether really ugly. And that scares me a little bit, but basically where I landed on him is like, I'd rather start him than Justin Herbert, JJ McCarthy, Shuck, Bryce Young, some of these guys who give me a lot of pause. I think the outlook I just gave for Brissett and their offense could happen for anybody in this range. I think it's probably a little bit less likely that Shuck can completely fall apart against the Panthers, but the Panthers are playing for something. Their defense isn't awful, and I just don't really trust the Saints down to down. I think that things could fall apart for them. This could be a really run-heavy, gross game. So basically, I settled on him just feeling a little bit safer than the other players, but not being somebody I could push ahead of Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, who have some rushing upside and the ability to get multiple touchdowns. Jordan Love with the multiple touchdown upside potential if this game does get kind of going back and forth or whatever. Same thing for Sam Darnold. I think has a lot more touchdown upside. He's just kind of a weird tier break where he's like almost on his own there in no man's land. If you've been starting him, you're probably just going back to it. But if you're in a one quarterback league, I think there's a lot of other directions you could go that will give you more upside.
Yeah, I think I'd go Brissett over Caleb. That might be the one place I disagree with you. I'm just very worried about the pass rate and the Bears saying, you know what, we don't need to throw at all in this game, which they have been very willing and excited to do anytime they've been able to. So, yeah, I would flip those two, but other than that, I can't argue too much.
Yeah, that is fair. I like that it's a man-heavy matchup, and I wonder if they might have some looks that they're like excited to get to Ben Johnson to kind of test out in this spot, get the ball out quickly to some of these guys for some catch and run opportunities. But yeah, I think that's totally fair to shy away from Caleb in this spot. Okay, before we sign out, I saw you had a Travis Etienne note, and I wanted to hear it. This is more of a DFS thought, I think. But what do you have on Etienne? This is the highest he's been in my rankings all year. It's running back 10 against the Jets.
Yeah, I think you have him ranked exactly right. But yeah, for DFS specifically, I think he's one of the best plays on the slate. Right now, he's projecting to be like top 5 in ownership among running backs, but like kind of fringe top 5, like maybe 13 to 14% ownership, where some guys are going to get over 20%. I think ETN could just lead all running backs in fantasy points this week. 12.5 point favorite against the Jets, top 5 implied total for the Jaguars. We've seen ETN put up big scores when he gets a lot of volume in these kind of positive game scripts this year. 19.9 DraftKings FBG across the 4 games. He's seen 17 or more carries, 93% boost to his fantasy points per snap when leading. Jets are a top 5 run funnel by P-Row. They've been even worse against the run since trading Quinnen Williams by virtually every single metric. And there's like an outside shot that Bashal Tutin is just in the doghouse after he fumbled last week. Didn't play a single snap on offense after that happened. They asked Liam Cohen, like, hey, what did Tutin not play because of the fumble? And he gave like a non-answer, like the typical non-answer of, oh, it was the game flow and we weren't really running the ball how we wanted to or whatever. We want him involved. Like he has the skill set, blah, blah, blah. But there's like a decent chance to me that it's actually just like an 80% carry share for ETN this week in like the best possible spot for it. So yeah, I really, really like him. He's only 6,500. Amazing DFS play.
That's a good call out. And for lineup setting purposes, I've got him below Bucky Irving, Josh Jacobs, and Saquon, above Javonte Williams, Kyren Williams, Chase Brown, RJ Harvey, Jonathan Taylor. Let's real quick do a flex comparison for people because some of y'all are stacked, and that's why you're listening in week 15. Well, honestly, maybe you have a bye, so you don't even need to be listening. But Etienne or George Pickens, Etienne or AJ Brown. These are Etienne or Jalen Waddle.
Etienne over Waddle for sure.
Okay.
Probably over AJ Brown too. Like I kind of think I could almost everything I just said about ETN, I could say about Saquon Barkley too. It's like an amazing matchup. We'll see if they get Lane Johnson back, but this could very much be like an Eagles run the hell out of the ball statement game that I'm a little nervous about the pass volume, even though it's been better lately for those Eagles pass catchers.
So we found the spot here between AJ Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Good stuff, Ryan. Thank you so much for being here. Let everybody know where they can find all your good work.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at RyanJ_Heath. I'm always tweeting stuff out. And you can find my full article talking about all of these types of matchup angles we discuss on the show at fantasypoints.com. It is called Advanced Matchups. Again, Advanced Matchups on fantasypoints.com. And you can use promo code Matchups15 to get 15% off the premium package that gives you Advanced Matchups, the Fantasy Points Data Suite, where all of the data we discuss on this show comes from. That's all I got. Thanks, Jacob.
Thank you so much. Everybody go check out Ryan's work for sure. Thank you all for being here, for interacting in the chat. Good luck to everybody in week 15. Do leave any start-sit questions you have, anything you're curious about as you get into setting lineups this week. I'll do my best to get to those. You can leave those in the comment section if you want. Thanks, everybody. This has been Beyond the Box Score Mastering Matchups. See you next week.